Cowboys, Saints. Last week was fun, but it's time to find out if the rout of the Panthers was legit or just grounds for a week of hope and what could be. There's real cause for concern with Taliesin Fuanga and Marshawn Lattimore missing practice on Thursday. What do we take from it? Let's look ahead with friend of the show, WWL-TV sports director Doug Mouton, as we also will take a look at some of the top games in the NFL this week, along with our thoughts on LSU, South Carolina, and Tulane, Oklahoma. Forget about energy and Clico. We have the power here on Dattitude. It's coming up next.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.
Where are you at, New Orleans? And hello to my friends elsewhere, everywhere, out there, who have gained 5 pounds over the past 3 days by blasting through their hurricane snacks. God bless you. We're just about done with all this crap, aren't we? I mean, we kind of joke a little bit, but there are still lots of people without power. 118,000 in Louisiana as of about 45 minutes ago. 118,000. Our friend Red Bean is still without power. Hold the Mayo, good friend who was on for our 200th episode. Yeah, he's still doesn't have power. So look, we all need to be thankful for where we are. What happened? The storm could have been a lot worse, but we made it through. This was not Ida. This was certainly not Katrina, Isaac. This wasn't one of those. Thank God there was nothing on the bottom end of this storm. We all made it through. But look, let's give some love, a few prayers for the people without the power, because they got to get it back, man. They got to get it back. These got to do a better job. We have plenty of power here this morning on Dattitude, episode number 278. Presented by Evangeline Securities for a Friday. That's right. It's game day Friday, September the 13th, 2024. I am your host, Jim Derry, whether you're watching on one of our NOLA.com social media channels or you're listening on demand after the fact to the podcast. As always, we welcome you to the ever-growing Dattitude family. Man, we had a good week as far as viewers, subscribers. We hope it keeps going, because we need you. We talk to you live. That's why we do this show live. We couldn't do it live on Wednesday because of all the stuff going on. So we recorded it Tuesday night. No show on Thursday, but we're back here. We'll get back to our regular schedule next week. You can be a part of the show, whether you're a first timer, whether you're a regular, whether you pop in once a week or every other week or whatever it is. Just type in your comment, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. And if you haven't already done so, look, you can still jump on the Dattitude train. Subscribe to the YouTube page. You'll always know when we're going on the air live, Monday through Friday, except for Tuesday. That's every weekday except Tuesday. Live at 11 a.m. See how smart I am? I just do it that fast. You'll also have access to all of our shorts and short takes. TikTok's growing, man. TikTok, man. I don't know what the definition of viral is, but we're starting to, we're not there. In my own mind, I am. I like to think we are. You can get in touch with me on X, Jim Derry Jr., via email, jderry@theadvocate.com. Who's with us this morning? A-Town. Good morning. That's right, Jim. Gabe. Larry is not here this morning. It's actually Doug Mouton. Larry told me about a week ago he couldn't make it. He's got something going on this morning. And so Mike Detillier was going to fill in. And then he lost his internet as of last night. He texted me late last night. Sorry, I couldn't make it. So Mike D couldn't fill in. So last minute, my friend Doug Mouton said he would come on the show. He's going to be on the show in about 10 or 15 minutes. Dylan, good morning. Who Dat Nation? Saints-Cowboys, man. They could do it this week. I'm a believer. I mean, 47-10 is fun, but I'll be a believer if they can do it this week. First timer. Yeah, UBN. First timer. First timer for what? Losing 120 pounds? I've never done it. Welcome, UBN. Before we get to the show, what did y'all do? How many of you lost power that are around the New Orleans area? I mean, obviously, if you're from Houston, like Gabe Henderson, you didn't lose power. We lost it for an hour. We got lucky, honestly. It went out at like 6 o'clock on Wednesday, and I'm like, really, already? And then they fixed it, and it came back on at like 7:15 or so, and we got lucky. I mean, we had the highest winds we had here where I live is about 50-something miles an hour winds, but we did have 8 at my house. Yeah, I'm a little national. You know how I think about the weather. I haven't talked about the weather in a while, but I'm a weather geek. 8.33 inches of rain in my house. You ought to see the backyard. Well, it's a little better now because I made the kids go clean it up. That's right. Kids had to clean. They're back in school now. So they had to, they went back this morning. It was an interesting week. Wednesday at the house, they had our whole family. The stuff my son says, he was here with his wife and his kids. It was a full house. Let's get back to normal, all right? This weekend I'm on Mr. Mom duty. Wife's out of town. It's going to be a lot of fun. I do get a break tomorrow night. Shaw West Jefferson on VSN. They were supposed to play tonight. Moved it to tomorrow night. So there you go. That's where I am right now. Yes, Mr. Mouton is coming up very soon. Ty, let's go. UBN wants to ask Doug about his fantasy team chances this week. I guess he's playing Team America. A-Town's got a whole home generator. Lost no power. I don't have those kind of bucks, A-Town. I can't afford. My son brought his mini generator over, but we didn't need it. Again, that hour we lost power. Everything was charged up, so we didn't need to worry about it. I could still watch TV on my iPad. If we would have gone another hour or so, we would have hooked it up. I don't have the money for the fancy Generac or anything like that. I know one thing. Switching over to topics, talking about the NFL a little bit before we get to the Saints. Did y'all see Bills-Dolphins last night? Look, I'm gonna like last week on Friday when I got my Thursday pick, the first pick of the season, and I was like all gung-ho because I predicted the score, basically. Not only did I get it right, but I predicted the score. I'm going to do a dance because my Sunday sucked. I was terrible last Sunday. But what I know is I already have more points this week in my best bets than I got last week. Buffalo Bills were my second best, my 4-point pick. Not only did they cover the spread, they were 2-point underdogs, which was like a gift. You were getting 2 points against the team the Bills dominate. And Tua, we're going to get to Tua in a second, but before he got hurt, he looked terrible. Threw 3 picks and a pick 6? It's terrible. And then he gets the concussion. A-Town wants to invest in Evangeline Securities. We're going to get to Evangeline Securities. You should. UBN says he had 100-mile-an-hour winds at his house. Still didn't lose power. That's because you rich and you got the, they got all the protections for the rich people. Ty picked Tua. Man, it was bad. I mean, Tua, at first, the first thing my son says is after the hit was, that's the last snap that Tua will ever take. And I said, overreact much? And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? Maybe it is. If you're Tua Tagovailoa, do you want to play football again? I mean, you want to play football again. But at what point does your health become more important than football? I don't know, man. I got to say, I think he has to seriously consider, and at the bare minimum, he needs to take like the next month off. At the bare minimum. I mean, the Dolphins season, we talked about it before. It's a tough schedule they got. I mean, you don't want to give up the ship in week 2. But the Dolphins, they're not very good. I mean, I predicted them to be 9-8, and I think I might have been over. I think they're going to, without Tua, even for a month, I don't think this is a non-win football team. They got destroyed. And this is before Tua went out. And I think Buffalo's good, but I don't think Buffalo is the same elite Buffalo team that they've been. Well, an elite might even be stretching it because they choked in the playoffs. They're kind of like the Saints' opponent this week. Great regular season team. In the playoffs, they stink. Whatever. I know this. That was a gift. I should have made it my 5-point pick. I mean, everything's great in hindsight, but one thing we know is Josh Allen beats the Dolphins. I think they said he's 16-1 or something along those lines against the Dolphins. He just doesn't lose to them. And who's going to play quarterback now? Skylar Thompson? Or are they going to go try to get somebody? Who are they going to try to get? I don't know. You going to try to make a trade or pick somebody up off the free agent wire? You going to try to talk Teddy Bridgewater into coming out of retirement? I don't know. PBM's with us. 2 had 3 interceptions. They tell us he is better than Carr. Who's they? I didn't. Gabe's raising his hand. I've never thought Tua was a great NFL quarterback, a good NFL. Well, maybe good. I don't know. Big Sean. Better is better. Bet on the Saints this week. We will get to our predictions at the end of the show. You see the line on the screen, and the bettors have been betting on the Saints. It's started at +7, went to 6.5, and yesterday dropped to 6. And that it dropped again this morning, not the line, but the money line did. The money line continues to drop. People are betting on the Saints. And I'm not just talking about here in New Orleans. Money is coming in on the Saints. I'll give you my thoughts on that. Again, we're going to save our predictions for the end of the show with Doug Mouton in a little bit. Sean, Dallas sports media not giving our Saints any chance of victory Sunday. They think the Saints are still the same team of last season. How do we know? Sean, I hope that they come out and play exactly like they played last week. But we're going to talk about it. What happens if Fuanga doesn't play? He was by far the best lineman on the team. A rookie playing his first NFL game. He had a almost perfect day. He was great. If he doesn't play, probably means Landon Young plays left tackle. Probably means Lucas Patrick, if he's healthy enough, plays left guard. And if he's not, Nick Saldiveri plays left guard against Dexter Lawrence. Trevor Penning and or Landon Young against Micah Parsons. I'm not trying to be Derry Downer. I'm just trying to give you a dose of reality. You got to remember who you're playing next week. Mike Prima. Who dat? 8 and 9 year, fellas. Well, that's up from what I think you said before, Mike. Ty says he lives about 10 minutes from Dak. If y'all want me to pay him a visit before Sunday. Yeah, pay him a visit. Why don't you pay Micah Parsons a visit? Can we nah, I'm not gonna say that. UBN says trade him Spencer Rattler. You're just stirring pots. Yeah, we're gonna talk about the O-line and all that, but look. Let's don't overreact to it. That's all I'm asking. Again, maybe I'm the one. Maybe I'm underreacting. The hype train is at like Mach 7 right now. You can't even stop the hype train. I got to read this tweet. We talk about fanboys and people who like to do podcasts. There are multiple fanboy podcasts. This isn't even the one that I'm normally talking about, but there was a tweet. I follow all these quote unquote fanboys who do fanboy podcasts. And I got to read it to you. I'm not going to mention any names, but I am going to quote it. Kubiak knows if he can get Saints looking good versus Dallas, he's basically on the express lane to head coach. Really? We're going to go 2 games into, I don't care if the Saints win 47-10 again. You don't become on an express lane to be a head coach following 2 games. Period. What happens if the Saints score 10 points and people will say, oh, Fuanga was hurt and they lose 47-10? Give me a break, dude. Let's be real about what this team is. That's what we're going to try to do today. Ty doesn't know where Micah Parsons lives. We'll find out, damn it. That's your job as a Houdat and a Dattitude family member. I don't know. You know what? Let's bring on, just for a minute, I want to get his thoughts. I'm going to bring on Gabe Henderson for just like a minute or two because Doug's about to come on. But I want to get his thoughts. First of all, Tua. Does Tua play again?
I don't know. That's up to him. I think it's a tough decision to walk away, especially when you've got that much money on the table. I think because it's so early in the season, he does. But if this were to happen at the end of the season, I don't know if he would, honestly.
Yeah. Look, man, if you're him, if you're Tua, again, and they were talking about it, I think it was Jason Taylor was talking about it last night. You gotta, if you're his wife, you gotta like say, dude, we got kids. I don't want to be, changing your diaper when you're 50. I mean, it's you can't keep going to look. I mean, Steve Young made it through okay, and he got smacked around, and he had what, 8 or 9 concussions, but he's rare. I bet you, when you start looking at Steve Young in a few years, I mean, he's probably he's like my age, so he's mid-50s. I mean, those things can take an effect for too long.
Put it this way, if Antonio Brown is tweeting that you probably need to retire because of concussions, if you get him talking about serious long-term health effects in these days, it's serious. Because I don't know if you see his tweets all the time. He's a jokester on Twitter now.
I don't pay attention to him. PBM says, Rattler is insurance and trade bait. Dude, I love you.
Who would trade for him?
Thank you for being a regular, but you're not going to get anything for him. Nothing. You get nothing for him. Be lucky if you get a 7th-round draft pick, which is, why would you trade him? You're not going to trade him.
There are experienced backups sitting in the bench that of teams that wouldn't get anything.
No. I mean,
I will say one thing just to react to the Kubiak tweet.
Yeah, go ahead.
Not only that's just insanity. Saying that he's on the expressway to be a head coach. Let's pump the brakes. Not only because it's been 2 games. Do we forget how bad his offensive coordinator stint in Minnesota went? Or are we just going to forget about that, brush that under the rug? And not only that, I was actually talking about it with a few buddies of mine the other day. Do you know how many good coordinators there are out there that are just waiting to be head coaches?
Yeah, and look, don't get me wrong. He certainly could be. I mean, if the Saints overperform and somehow win 9 or 10 games, which is a possibility. I'm not saying they will or they won't. I'm not overreacting to last week. I said before the season, it's kind of like predicting how many hurricanes there'll be this year. The Saints might be a 5-win team, and I still think they could be a 5-win team. Or they could be a 10-win team. I think we're going to find out a lot about this team over the course of the next 3 weeks. Look, let's count the Chiefs game as a loss. If they somehow miraculously win that, great. But you're talking about games against Dallas, Philadelphia, Atlanta, 2 of them on the road. If you can find a way to win even one of those games, and I think they will, but if they win 2, and you talk about 3-1, it's a whole different season. Okay, it's a whole different season. So this week I'm going to learn a lot about this team. They don't have to win this team like they had to win last week. But if they play competitive with this offensive line against that defensive front, and they keep this game close, whether they win or lose, if they keep it close, it's going to change my opinion overall, but I can't change it off of one game. I'm never going to change anything, no opinion off of one game. I can't say never, but hardly ever.
Or 2 games. I mean, you've got experienced coordinators out there. Like just off the top of my head, the 2 in Detroit, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, waiting for head coaching jobs, should probably get them soon. Bobby Slowick. I mean, it's just 3 names off the top of my head. And then you've got head coaches who are going to be fired that are going to be looking elsewhere. Brian Daboll. Then you've got the Bill Belichick's of the world. Mike McCarthy, maybe. Nick Sirianni. I mean, there are so many coaches that would be ahead of someone like Kubiak that I think it's absurd to say something like that.
No doubt about it. We will talk to you Monday. Hopefully it's a happy show. We'll see.
Fingers crossed.
See you Monday. All right. Moving on. Doug Mouton is in the green room, or at least his camera is in the green room. I'm going to get to him in just a minute. Before we get to Doug Mouton, you know what's coming up next. before we get to Doug and the rest of the show, let me continue the story about our friends at Evangeline Securities. Of course, they are a company that can help you decide if it's the right time to sell your business. And just as importantly, they can figure out what that business is worth. Don't want to worry about having to close up shop for who knows how long because of hurricanes? Might be a decision y'all have been thinking about for a long time. Time to reach out to Evangeline's founding and managing partners, Nick Braden and Ron Hemel, even if it's just to find out about where you stand. They'll schedule a complimentary evaluation, and then you will decide if you want to proceed after you get their findings of what your family-run or privately owned business might be worth. Nick and Ron are homegrown, and they love their people here in New Orleans with offices on Poydras Street and Lafayette. And we'll tell you more about them and Evangeline later in the show. But in the meantime, you can check them out at www.evangelinesecurities.com. All right. It is that time of the show when we bring in our guest, a friend, a regular. You know who it is. Mr. Mouton, what is going on?
Oh, Friday, post-hurricane, and starting to drink in some football now. And I did watch the Dolphins and the Bills last night, and I heard what you were talking about with Tua. That's scary. Look, when I was a kid, 17, I had a concussion like that. Of course, I did by playing flag football, where I flipped around and landed went up for an interception. Somebody hit my feet, landed on the earth, and I was unconscious for, 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
And I woke up in a hospital, and it was horrible and scary. And I saw what happened to Foster Moreau this week, and it's petrifying. The links to head hits and ALS. There's just, it's just all of it's really scary. And when I saw that with Tua, the game instantly got no fun for me just watching it. But yeah, so I heard what you said about Tua. Look, there's no jobs out there that pay what Tua makes, and I get that as a guy with kids. But man, it's petrifying.
Yeah, and I too have had a serious concussion myself. In fact, driving home from covering a Saints game about probably been about 25 years now. I got in an accident, got a drunk driver hit me head on, and I was taken in an ambulance to a hospital, and it wasn't fun. And I still feel lingering effects from it here and there, and that's just one. So I can't imagine having 4 or 5 of them. And like Steve Young, we're talking about having 7 and 8. So one listener is saying sound. Maybe is there a way to turn your sound up just a little bit? I think you're a little low.
Oh yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, test this.
A-Town is.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm on the right microphone.
A-Town's praising the great Doug Mouton.
Wow.
By the way, we thank you for.
I'll take whatever.
We thank you for last minute joining us too, because I know that I texted you at 10 o'clock last night. Mike Detillier lost internet and didn't have power. Well, he had power, but I think he was still on generator power actually. So anyway, I know he didn't have internet, and last minute couldn't make it. And as always, big friend of the show coming on last second.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I'm happy to do it.
All right, let's get to a couple comments before we just talk Saints. Michelle Castro Araglado Neesmith. I'm not going to say that 10 times fast. It will be a good game, and we will dominate the Cowboys. Big Sean asking, what if Kubiak's system fits Carr like a hand in a glove?
Yeah.
We'll find out. By the way, we're going to give our predictions at the end of the show, Doug. So we're going to save our Saints prediction for the last thing we do. Joseph says, how about them Saints? Go Saints. Niner for life. Saints 51, Cowgirls 3.
Wow.
Bucket. Wow is right. And lastly, Ty says, I blacked out from a hit on the rugby field, but they didn't stop the match for me. Teammate woke me up, and I finished the game.
Oh, well, I finished the flag football game. They didn't bring me for like an hour. My friends brought, because I kept asking the same questions over and over. My friends didn't bring me to the hospital.
Where am I?
Yeah, I kept saying, what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Well, let's talk about Saints and Cowboys. By the way, if you're watching, no matter where you're watching, as we've told you before, and as many of you are doing, feel free at any time to comment, be a part of the show. That's why we do this show live. Ask Doug any questions you might want to ask. He'll tell you about the whiskey he's been drinking the past few days and
a lot of it.
Enjoying the hurricane party. He's having his own little hurricane party,
Yeah.
Let's start with this. Brian's got a great segue into what I want to start with, and still have worry about the O-line and D-line. And obviously, I'm going to start with the O-line, because if you talk about where the Saints-Cowboys, the main focus is going to be, as well as the Saints offensive line held together last week. And, I thought Fuanga was excellent, especially for our first ever NFL start. I think he had a near perfect grade when you talk about he had no pressures. I thought there were a couple moments where he was dominating and he looked like a seasoned pro. But this week it's a different animal. First of all, Fuanga, does it concern you that he missed practice on Thursday? And do we think that's going to linger into Sunday?
Yeah, that I don't know. Yeah, sure, it's concerning. Yes, absolutely. My gut tells me he's going to play and be just fine, because NFL players play through nicks and more than nicks, and I think he's going to be just fine. But sure, that's a concern right now. Look, let me just say this before we start any discussion. And I understand the optimism, and I love the optimism. I think the Saints win last week says a whole lot more about the Panthers than it does about the Saints. The Saints beat New England last season, early in the season, won the opener, but it was early. They beat them by 34. The Saints won this game by 37. And that game said much more about how bad New England was and much less about – it said the Saints were at least mediocre, at least pretty good. It didn't say the Saints were great last year. I think beating the crap out of Carolina tells you the Saints are at least mediocre. They're at least pretty good. Sure, they could be better than that. And there were so many positives that we can talk about, but I think it says a lot more about how bad Carolina was. And at the end of the season, I think that's gonna play out for sure. And I'm not sure how it's gonna play out for the Saints.
I think we'll certainly find out a lot more about this team this week, one way or the other. And again, I said it before, they don't have to win this game, but they just can't. No. They can't look terrible. Okay, right. Let's set the bar low. T Mama, good morning, and she says good morning to me and good morning to you, Doug. Sean also says, just like the Saints having rookies starting on the O-line, do we think the D-line can make an impact since Cowboys have a rookie center and a tackle starting? We can feast. I will say this, Doug. The thing is different about the Cowboys is you look at those numbers, and again, these are only 1 week numbers. Okay, these are this week's numbers. But if you're listening to the podcast after the fact, you can't see the numbers on the right-hand side of the screen. We've got the rankings after 1 week. The Cowboys were playing the Browns. The Saints were playing the Carolina Panthers. The Browns have one of the best defenses in the NFL, and you saw that offensively, although they were 20th running the ball, they're not going to run the ball that much this year anyway.
Right.
They were 8th in passing. So to me, that still says that the Cowboys did an okay job against that Browns front.
Look, Browns are a solid team, especially on defense, very solid. The Cowboys, if you said 8th in pass, I'm sure they would take that. And they were obviously plenty good enough to win. Yeah, look, I mean, you see the Saints are 14th in pass. That's deceptive in the sense that, when you get up big, you don't need to pass. In one game, those stats are hard to read. I will say, and look, I agree with the comment. I love the Saints defensive line. I love them coming out of training camp. I still love them heading into the Cowboys game. The offensive line is still the question. I will say this, and among the positives that I really like, I thought Clint Kubiak did a really nice job of disguising what was weak about the line and using what was strong. My single favorite play of the game was in the first half. Saints had a 3rd and 7, and they ran that quick pitch sweep to Alvin Kamara with Trevor Penning leading the way. Quarterback sees Penning and starts backing up. Penning didn't really even have to do anything except get in front of him, because if I saw Trevor Penning running at me with angry intentions, I would do the same thing. Backed up, Kamara gained, I think it was 17 on that play. And I love the call. I love the trust of Penning. I loved everything about it. It was my single favorite play of the game. They minimized what was bad, the straight drop back pass we didn't see, which is what I told you we never saw in training camp, was straight drop back passing. I'm sure we will see it in 2-minute offenses, but I loved what the O-line did. I thought McCoy and Ruiz had excellent games. I thought Penning was solid. The one where Penning almost gave up a sack was the bomb to Rashid Shaheed, and Derek Carr stood in there beautifully and threw the ball with 2 guys bearing down on him and delivered a strike. I mean, it was so much to like in that first game, but it was the Carolina Panthers. So as much as I want to say how excited I am about that effort, and I also am extremely cautious coming out of that effort across the board with everything we're going to talk about. And look, I'm looking at national guys, and especially, I know this is goofy, I like looking at like predictions on TikTok because it's guys who think they know something, and they're all picking the Cowboys to win 38.
You know.
Right, yes. They're all picking Dallas to blow out the Saints. So I'm curious. If that happens, I'm going to say, well, I guess, I was wrong about the things I was positive about. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Saints are going to play with them. But obviously, we're going to find out on Sunday. This game becomes really exciting right now.
Yeah, we'll get out again. We're going to save our final predictions for the end of the show. That is going to be the last thing we do. So if you want to hear Doug and I's prediction, and you can give your prediction anytime you want, and we'll show it here on the screen. But I can say, I think there's a lot of look. I said it in my open. If anything else, if there anything that last week did, at least gave Saints fans some hope for a week. I was so worried that they were going to lay an egg last week, and then we're going to have this whole week of crying and negativity and Derry Downer and hating and Allen's got to go and Carr sucks and blah, blah, blah. I can't do that for 18 weeks, Doug. I just can't do it. So at least at the bare minimum, we got 1 week taken off of that. But we got some positive comments, Ty. He says he lives close to Dallas. He says the fans around here in North Dallas have repeatedly been saying this is our year. Haven't they been saying that for like a quarter century?
Oh, and certainly the last 5 years.
Yeah, T Mama says they really got their hopes up high. There's no doubt about it. Sean says Cowboys offense was pedestrian in the second half. Special teams and defense was the difference, but they still were good. I mean, you can't underestimate that. Brian says Dallas 27, Saints 23. That would mean Dallas wins, Saints cover. Dylan says 34-31 Saints win on a Groupie field goal. Man, we didn't even talk about Groupie, but he was phenomenal last week.
I went and talked to him in the locker room after, just because 9 for 9. Look, Blake Groupie hit 81% of his field goals last year, which is not good enough in the NFL. And there were only 2 kickers in the NFL who missed more field goals or more total kicks than Blake Groupie. 2 in the NFL. That's like, which is why they brought in competition. I wasn't sure he'd keep his job. And given what you would have to call a mediocre to below average rookie season, comes out in game 1, hits a 57, 2 over 50, and 9 for 9 on all of his kicks. It was spectacular. And I went and talked to him in the locker room. The first thing I said, when you lined, and this is before we were rolling, I said, when you lined up for that last one, I was thinking, he's got to make this. And he looked at me and I said, because the only way you get to be NFC Special Teams Player of the Week is if you're perfect. It doesn't matter if you make 2 from 50. If you miss one, and he started laughing, he goes, "Oh, I thought the same thing." I said, "Yes, you got to be perfect." And then when you were, I thought, all right, he's giving himself a chance to be the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week.
That 57-yarder, I mean, he drilled it. It was convincing. That was a convincing kick. He changed my mind with that kick. So I thought he would.
No BS, Jim. It was stunning at that moment in the game that Dennis Allen had the confidence in him from the 40-yard line to say, you know what, we're going to kick a field goal here. Dennis Allen, we joke about this in the press box, he wants to play defense and field position. That's who he is, a defensive coach. And that's an aggressive offensive call from Dennis Allen to say, let's play for the points from the 40. And
I know.
early in the game, and that was incredible. I mean, literally, as a lineup, I said, I can't believe they're trying this. Not that he couldn't make it, of course he could make it, but that they were trying it. That was a stunning coaching move from Dennis Allen that I think showed some growth and change in him. I really do. Because
don't talk good about Dennis Allen, Doug. They're gonna like stop watching. Don't talk good about Dennis.
I'm not talking good. Well,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. They're even giving Dennis Allen a pass this week.
That was a mindset change from Dennis Allen. It really was. He said,
agree.
I am going to be aggressive and try this. And then Groupie he drilled that. That was it. Yeah. That kick was as good as the pass that Derek Carr threw to Rashid Shaheed on the fifth play.
No doubt. And then he kicked 52-yard later. Ty says Saints don't want to get in a kicking game with Dallas. I mean,
I get that.
If you can kick a 57-yard, I get Brandon Aubrey's a great kicker, and he is. He might be the best kicker in the NFL. But that doesn't mean you don't want to.
My fantasy leagues, yes.
I actually disagree. I think the lower scoring the Saints keep this, the better off they are.
Yeah.
So
I don't see 34-31. I don't see that.
Not at all. Not at all. Cebu says, good morning. Well, thank you for joining us. I think that's the first comment from you, and thank you for joining us. PBM says, a friend of mine has been a Cowboys fan since 1972. He says the Saints will win. Travis Roberts says, Cowboys 23, Saints 17. That'd be right on the number. Let's talk about the line real quick. Again, we're not going to give our predictions yet. Michelle says Saints 24, Cowboys 21. The Saints are 6-point underdogs going into this game, Doug. The over-under, I have found the line changes, and if you haven't noticed, I'm going to let you know about them. But the line opened up as Cowboys -7. It quickly, and I mean almost immediately, dropped to 6.5. The sharp bettors were jumping on the Saints.
Yeah.
And then over the course of a few days, it dropped even lower to 6, where it stays. But that being said, it's gone a little bit even further to the Saints because that money line has gone from +220 yesterday to +215. And money line for the Cowboys -270 to -265. Now, what that means is if you wanted to bet on the Cowboys just to win, you'd have to bet $265 to win 100. And if you want to bet 100 on the Saints and they win, you'd win 215. But this has changed. All moving in the Saints' direction, telling me that money is all over the Saints this week. So the bettors believe.
Yes, but didn't the money move towards Carolina last week? Weren't there people who had opened up at 5.5? I saw where it opened up somewhere at 5.5, went down to 4, meaning all the money was on Carolina. Now, granted, you don't know anything before the opener, which I thought was stupid. Look, I've said this 1,000 times. The owner in Carolina is the worst owner in American sports. It is possible. His name's David Tepper. He's terrible. He's on his 7th head coach in year 7 in Carolina. Drink that in. The 6 years before he got there, the Panthers had the 5th best record in the NFL. I'm talking about from 12 to 17. Those are the 6 years before he got there. The first 6 years he had them, which were up until this season, they were the worst team in the NFL. He's a trash, horrible owner who thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. You can occasionally overcome that and be okay. You saw that with Washington when they had the worst owner in the NFL. Occasionally they'd be okay, but in the long run, you're going to be terrible unless something drastically changes with that guy, and I don't see it. First tweet I sent out was when the Saints made it 7-0, is that David Tepper could fire Dave Canales at any moment then. That was because he's a terrible
You're saying
owner.
He's John Meekum.
Well, but look, I think John Meekum was better because John Meekum was uninvolved. Uninvolved is better than over-involved. The owner who thinks he knows, I heard him say in an interview, he said, well, I've been around football a long time. All right, he just bought the team. He's been around football in the fact that he's been in the stands. Like, that's not.
Well, you and I have been around football.
Yes, everybody's been around football. Yes, it's America. We've all been around football. The fact is he thinks he knows something he doesn't. And that's why Carolina's is terrible and will continue to be terrible, may occasionally get to mediocre. But I think as long as he's the owner, unless he drastically changes who he is as a human, they're going to continue to be terrible. So I thought the opener was super easy to predict. It's a bad team that I think is going to continue to be bad. But Dallas is a good team. I mean, I think there is as much mystery from the Saints end heading into this game as there is in an opener. I think we learned because you can go back to that Panthers game. Watch the tape of the Panthers game. Saints dominated in all three phases.
They did.
And looked great. They won 34-0. Tyrann Mathieu had the pick six. It was dominating on both ends. They beat up a bad quarterback. The Saints, against teams that won 6 games or less, the Saints were 6-0, 5-0 or 6-0 last year. I'm forgetting. But either way, they didn't lose against bad teams. The Saints are very good against bad teams. Dennis Allen knows how to put bad teams away. That's one thing we are positive of. This is not a bad team. So now Dallas is at least pretty good. And now we're in a complete mystery zone at this point.
I hope you enjoyed the Doug Mouton soapbox on David Tepper moment.
It's coming again later in the year. Happy to the next Carolina game.
Brought to you here on the Dattitude podcast this Friday morning, presented to you by Evangeline Securities. It's Soapbox Friday. We got Mono E Monday. Maybe we'll have Soapbox Friday.
You don't mind me talking about it. You don't
absolutely not. You can talk about whatever you want. You can talk about what you ate for dinner last night if you want on this show, Doug. You're free reign. You can talk about whatever you want. You see, past and future, we got Saints and Cowboys, what they did last week. Now, obviously, we'll be able to expand this as the season goes along. But you see, we all know what Saints did last week. We saw the Cowboys beat up on the Browns. Sean Watson was terrible, but they were able to do offensively. The Cowboys were able to do it offensively, winning 33-17.
Deshaun Watson was way beyond terrible. Deshaun Watson did things like back to pass, no pressure, and then runs into pressure, and like not just bad, but horrifically bad.
Yeah,
Deshaun Watson's decline from
Gabe says 0 for 10 on passes 15 yards or more.
Wait, who? Deshaun Watson?
Deshaun Watson,
yeah. I rewatched a bunch of that. And look, I'm not sure what I can learn about Dallas in that. You can learn about Dallas's offense, and they did a lot of good things. But what you can learn about Dallas's defense, because Deshaun Watson was so terrible that Derek Carr is not going to play like this. So let me say one thing about Derek Carr, because I want to get this out. This is all because I do my number research for doing the touchscreen thing that I do on Monday nights. You know, the best 2 games of Derek Carr's career statistically in 11 years are the last 2 games he's played in. Like that's kind of that's kind of stunning when you think that his 2 best quarterback ratings of his entire 11-year career are the last 2 games he's played in.
I know this. He's 5-1 over his last 6 games overall. So, Joseph Reed, Saints 23, Dallas 20. Let's see. What else did I want to show here? Glenn Orr, we're going to get you a comment in just a minute. Good morning. I think the Saints' concerns are injuries. Lattimore and Fuaga, we kind of touched on that just a minute ago. We'll touch on it again. And Mary, we'll give you a little plug. Mary Lawson on Facebook says she has her tickets up for sale due to the fact that her daughter is sick and in the hospital. We're sorry to hear that.
Oh, yeah.
You can't make it. And if you want her tickets, look up Mary J. Lawson on Facebook. There you go. If you're looking for tickets to Saints Cowboys game in Dallas, which I'm sure is not an easy ticket to get. Doug, here with Doug Mouton on this Friday morning. He was talking about his magic board. You got a 4th down and 4 on Sunday nights. Monday, he's got the post-game review, and he's got his little.
I had somebody get mad at me. He's like, why do you have to swipe on that thing? Isn't there a clicker that works? I think you're doing that to be ridiculous. I was like, no.
I'm saying now you're making me want to do. Now I'm just going to want to do that.
The touchscreen we have is like the first generation touchscreen, and you literally have to touch it to make it advance. There is no compatible clicker.
T Mama says you must have had an energy drink. This is Doug Mouton every day of his life. I mean, you have not watched Channel 4 if you don't know this is Doug Mouton. You ought to see him in a fantasy draft. By the way, Uncle Big Nick was joking. He said he wanted to be able to come on the show so he could give you a little grief about fantasy football.
Oh, I mean, what you going to do? Okay, time out. Jim's got a keeper league, right? If anybody's ever played a keeper league, look, I'm not complaining, but a keeper league, obviously people have keepers that are a good value. So if you start fresh in the league, you have no keepers. And I would say this: don't judge my team in one game.
Winding them up, baby.
Give me a chance to be bad before you call me bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't say somebody's terrible at something.
Winding them up. Calvin.
I've collected money the last 2 years in my fantasy football league. Just chill out a little bit and give me a shot.
Calvin says Saints by 35. Okay, man.
Yeah,
I love you, Calvin, but I love the optimism.
Yeah, I do too.
All right, look, I promise we're going to come back to Saints. Okay, this slide is gonna come back on the screen in just a moment, but I want to talk about a few other things real quick. So we're going to come back, give our Saints prediction before Doug goes off the air. I promise. Okay, let's go to first off before we get to LSU and Tulane. I want to talk what I do with Larry every week. Larry Holder usually comes on the show on Fridays, and we talk about whatever I think are the 3 biggest games of the week. One of them was last night. Got that one right. Get your thoughts on what I think are the 3 remaining best games of the week, not including the Saints. All right. And you know what? I would put the Saints in this list. If Tom Brady's doing the game, by the way, if you didn't know it, I don't want to give Fox too much of a plug because Doug doesn't like when we give Fox plugs. But anyway, if you can watch CBS after the Saints game, we got Bengals at Chiefs. I think is one of the biggest games of the week, and it's very important. I don't necessarily think the Bengals have to win, Doug, but they got to show up. They didn't show up last week in an embarrassing loss. They are 6-point underdogs. This line has kind of been changing a little bit. It was down to 5.5 yesterday, went back to 6. The bettor said, you know what, that's a little bit too much. But a 6-point underdog at Kansas City, what do you think about that one?
I would still take Kansas City.
Okay.
Yeah, I because I'm positive and I know what they are and I believe in them and their defense is underrated like it was last year. I would go Kansas City, but I agree with you 100% on the Bengals. And look, let me say this in my defense. We're at the game last week. We usually don't leave the dome until 5:30 to 6. Yeah. So for me, most of the early games I don't get to see. So I don't get to see how bad people. I can rewatch some of them. I do watch all the Thursdays. I watch all the Mondays, but until week 5 or 6, it takes me a little while to get good handles. I don't have a great handle on how bad the Bengals are, but I do know how good the Chiefs are. And so just based on what I know, I would bet Chiefs and give the points.
Yeah, I will. I put my iPad on the red zone when I'm in the dome, when I'm sitting up there in the dome. That way, especially when the Saints are in a break or whatever, I can stare at it and see who's scoring. You know what I noticed? The Bengals game wasn't on the red zone very much because they weren't getting in the red zone. But look, I think this is a huge bounce back game. This is a game I talked about in my picks column. I didn't make it a best bet, but I'm telling you, upset alert. And the Sharps, they like Kansas City in this game. Although the line trended towards the Bengals for a while, the Sharps got back in it and moved this line back to 6. But I think the Bengals are going to play much better. And I know they got a lot of problems, and T. Higgins is hurt, and Jamar Chase wants a new contract and blah, blah, blah. I just think the Bengals are too good not to show up here. I would take the 6 points, and I would think about putting a couple bucks on the money line because I'm telling you, upset alert. Kansas City, I know they've had extra rest as well, but wouldn't surprise them if they got a little bit complacent. Bengals have also had success against the Chiefs in the past. All right, Sunday Night Football, 7:20 on NBC. The Chicago Bears against Gabe Henderson's Houston Texans. The Bears are 6.5-point dogs going into the Texans. Bears look terrible, somehow found a way to win. The Texans look okay. In a 2-point eking out a victory against the Colts. They seem to always have success against Indy. Well, it's kind of mixed bag, I guess. But anyway, your thoughts on Bears and Texans? I find this one really interesting. I can't wait to watch this game.
Yeah, that spread is a little bigger than I wish it was, but I would still take the Texans and give them. Again, I know the Texans are a pretty good team. I don't think Indianapolis is bad. I don't think winning a close game over the Colts is a negative sign. I think that's positive. I like Houston. I like them to keep getting better. I would, and I don't know what the Bears are, a complete mixed bag. And Caleb Williams was not good overall. He apologized and said, "I'll be better next time." Based on what I know, and what I know I don't know, I would bet Houston in this one too.
This is not one I'm looking to play, really.
No, I wouldn't either, because I think the line is too accurate.
Yeah, it's close. I like Houston to win the game. I like the Bears to cover, same as last week. I like the Texans to win the game and cover the 2.5-point spread. And the Colts to cover the 2.5 spread. It happened. I'm going to go with that again. I'm going to say a Texans win. I think I said something like 27-22 in my predictions, somewhere along those lines. Definitely not a game I would play either way, but it might be the most fun game to watch So Doug and I are split on both of these games. Let's see if we'll come together. I kind of doubt it. On Falcons at Eagles, the Falcons were god-awful last week. The Eagles were okay in Brazil, but Jalen Hurts at home is very good. And it's the Falcons getting 6.5. They don't want to give it 7. There's a reason why they don't want to give it 7. They don't want to give you 7. And the Falcons, what do you think, Doug Mouton?
Yeah, I would take the Falcons at the points. I still think the Falcons are pretty good. I know they didn't look like it in week 1. I like Philadelphia, but that's almost a whole touchdown. I would take the points that it's going to be within a touchdown.
All right, we've come together. We both agree on this one. This actually almost made my card. And look, I know the whole story about Kirk Cousins sucks in primetime. I get it. His record straight up is terrible. His record against the spread isn't any good in primetime. But I think with these weapons and the Falcons knowing that they need to bounce back, because I think they play the Chiefs next week. Because if they don't win this game, they're staring 0-3 right in the face. This is a big game. I'm not saying the Falcons are going to win, but I think they're going to play much better than they played last week. Gabe says he likes the under in the Texans-Bears game. You know, even though I said 27-22, which would be over, I don't think that's a bad take at all because, you're just automatically thinking Caleb Williams, C.J. Stroud, you're going to have a lot of points. And that number's kind of low, actually, 45.5. I could see that, but I don't know. I'm going to stay away from that game altogether. So Doug's got Chiefs -6, Texans -6.5, Falcons +6.5. I've got all 3 dogs. +6, +6.5, +6.5. And yet I like the favorite to win all 3 of those games straight up. All right, let's talk about college football. Big week for our local teams here. LSU look, let's just be frank. They haven't looked very good. They're 2-0. They're 1-1. I don't know why I put 2-0 in there. So ignore that record there. They're 1-1, obviously. They lost to USC. Now they play another USC. The South Carolina Gamecocks. They are 6.5-point favorites. This spread has dropped. People are betting on South Carolina. A lot of experts like South Carolina. In fact, a lot of quote-unquote experts like South Carolina win the game straight up. What do you think about LSU, South Carolina?
Well, look, I thought there were so many positives even in the loss to Southern Cal. I still like LSU's chances to be a really good team. In my lifetime, I can't ever remember saying that about South Carolina. I like LSU's chances to go there and win. If I had to bet it straight up, for sure, I'd put money on LSU. And 6.5 is kind of a lot, but I think LSU is going to play well, and I think LSU is going to win. I think this is going to be the game where you start to see who LSU can be. There were a lot of things I liked about that team in the loss to Southern Cal. I know the way it ended was terrible. Brian Kelly's his reaction was comical afterwards, but I like LSU, and I like LSU to be a good team this year, to be a really good team this year.
I will say this. I know why people are concerned. I mean, people are concerned about the way they played against Nicholls State. But if you take, look, Colin Guggenheim ran all over the field. I get it. I understand you're worried about the defense, but I think they came back, had a little hangover from the USC game. And it's hard to get up at home for a team that you really don't care about winning when the other team's playing it like it says Super Bowl.
I just think those games, I talked about the Saints and the Panthers and the Saints and the Patriots last year. There are games you really can't learn anything from. And a game with LSU against any FCS. Look, I love Nicholls, and Tim Rebowe has done a spectacular job in Thibodeau. Putting them in the hunt for an NCAA playoff bid every year is amazing from what he took over. But at the same time, there's nothing you can learn. Nothing, with the exception of injuries. There's nothing you can learn in a game like that from LSU's standpoint. You're overanalyzing in a way that doesn't make any sense. It's a Southern Cal game is what you go back to. And again, I saw so many positives on defense that I really liked that I think are going to translate. And I think, and again, look, there's mystery here. We're in September. But I think we're going to start to see who LSU is this week, and I think they're going to beat South Carolina. And if you gave me $100 and made me bet, I'd give the points, although I wouldn't put my own money on it. But I think LSU is going to win.
You did that to me on your show.
I know. See, I like that bet because every time you say, "Who do you like?" Oh, I don't know. I like it. But if you give people $100 and say you have to bet it on one, then you have to give a prediction.
I actually might bet real money. I love the Tigers in this spot here. I think the Tigers win by a couple touchdowns. I think they have something to prove. I think South Carolina's offense stinks. I mean, they beat Houston last week 16-12. I mean, I'm looking at the wrong score. They beat Kentucky with 31-10, I believe. But they only had like 100 and some odd yards. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Gabe, but I think they only had like 100 and some odd yards passing. I'm thinking of the Oklahoma game. So they weren't all that impressive. I just think that this is the game where LSU says, you know what? We've had a week to put the whole past 2 weeks behind us. I think they go on the road, game day crowd. And Columbia is a tough place to play. But there's a reason why that LSU hasn't ever lost in Columbia, or hasn't lost since 1930 or whatever it is. I don't know. Yeah. 166 yards passing, 86 yards rushing, Gabe says, in the 31-6 game. So there you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, Doug and I both like LSU to roll this weekend. I really don't think it's going to be all that close. All right. Tulane, again, another game where I forgot to change the records. The records are not right. Ignore those. But the lines, the odds are correct. I did change those. In fact, I changed them this morning. Tulane at Oklahoma. They're getting 13 on the road against an Oklahoma team that, they've been okay. They beat the hell out of Temple. Big deal. And then they 16-12. That was the game I was talking about, that they beat Houston. I mean, I'm not all that impressed about Oklahoma, but I think this goes one of two ways for Tulane, Doug. I think they're either feeling sorry for themselves because of the way they let Kansas State game slip away, which means they get blown out, or I think they actually have a chance to win. So I think it's a really, really super tight game. And I know this sounds like I'm predicting the weather, or a hurricane. I think they get, so it's either like 3 touchdowns or it's like 3 points. I don't think there's any in between.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would agree with that. Look, I think Tulane's a good team. They're not a great team, but I think Tulane's a good team. And Kansas State's going to be
very good team
for a playoff spot.
I agree.
I don't think they're going to get one, but they're going to be in the conversation for most of the season. And Tulane absolutely played with them. It was an even game if you saw it. They had a couple of freshman mistakes near the end of the game, and Tulane still had a chance at the end of this game. I think Oklahoma's a little better than Kansas State. I like Oklahoma to win. I would take Tulane with the 13. Look, I don't give Tulane a great chance to win this game, but Tulane's a good team, and I absolutely think they're going to compete for a conference championship.
It is it's a must-win game for Tulane in the sense of, if they want to have any chance to make the 12-team playoff, they have to win this game and run the table. I really like what I've seen from Darian Mensah so far. I think he's gonna be a really good quarterback. I think he fits John Summerall's scheme perfectly. I think in the long run, Tulane will be a really good team and get a chance to go to a nice bowl game and be probably somewhere along the lines of, I don't know, 9-3 maybe. But I think that the end of last week's game is going to linger. When you're talking about a freshman quarterback, and I know good coaches can get their teams past this, but John Summerall is new to Tulane. I just see it lingering. And again, if you wanted to think about betting it, I told Tom Casale this the other day. This is a game where you'd be much better served to live bet it. If Tulane looks early like they're going to stay close, then I take whatever points, because I don't think the line's going to change all that much. However, if Oklahoma gets the opening kickoff, goes right down the field and scores a touchdown, the line moves to like plus 18, I would still give the points then.
Yeah, that's the way I think. Betting strategies that are like, I would live bet this one. Like, honestly,
if you're going to bet it,
I've never thought of games that way, but I don't disagree with you. But I think Tulane's going to be fine. I don't think there's going to be lingering effects. I just don't think they're better than Oklahoma to win on the road. I do think. I think Oklahoma's a better team. I'd love to be wrong. I think Oklahoma's a better team. I like Oklahoma to win, but I like Tulane to play well, and I like Tulane to be a really good team all season and to be in the conversation for a conference championship.
All right. If I was using Mouton fake $100 that I was forced to bet on, and I had to bet all 100 one way or the other, I would give the points here. But I wouldn't feel good about it. I wouldn't feel good about it.
Take them, and I wouldn't feel great. But because look, Tulane could be down 7 all game and then give up a pick 6 at the end, and it drives me nuts because you could be right and wrong at the same time. But I like Tulane to make a game out of this. Yes.
Doug, you may be right. I may be crazy. Yeah. It may be a lunatic we're all looking for. I don't know. Anyway. All right. Time to get back to the Saints here and our final predictions before we say goodbye to Doug Mouton. But Doug, hold on a second. Before we get to our Saints predictions, and I didn't tell you this was coming, but let me tell you more about Evangeline Securities and how they can help you figure out what your family or privately owned business might be worth and whether it's time to sell. How do they do it? Well, after that complimentary valuation of your company, if you decide to proceed, native New Orleanians, Nick Braden, Ron Hemelt, and the folks at Evangeline will begin an extensive auction process among established private equity funds from around the world. And they will maximize the return process for the founder and his or her family. They'll have you set up like Clint Kubiak against the Carolina Panthers, like Chris Franklin against the Spaghetti Models, like Dattitude over the Fanboy podcast. Indeed, Evangeline Securities is the top producer on their platform. There are very few companies like them in this area, and none with their dedication and success. They're fully licensed, ready to serve you. So get in touch with Nick and Ron about what's really important the rest of your life. You can find them at www.evangelinesecurities.com. Okay, it is prediction time. We had one earlier that I didn't show yet from our regular, one of our favorites. A-Town says, Olave over 150 yards receiving. Saints 31, Cowgirls 13. That is quite the prediction, my friend. Doug Mouton, what you got?
If I had to, I would take the points.
Yep, you got 100 fake bucks.
Then I would take 100 fake bucks. I'll put it on the Saints +6. That's easy. If I had to guess right now, I'd say the Cowboys in a close game. That's what I would put, somewhere around 21-17, something like that. I would go under the 46.5 because I think both teams are going to try to run the ball and chew up time. Again, I like so many things the Saints did in week one. Look, one thing that I thought was awesome, I went back and rewatched multiple times Alontae Taylor's 3 sacks. Those were brilliant.
They were. They were drawn up perfectly.
In multiple ways. In pass rush concepts. And that you talk about what Dennis Allen does well. They were brilliant pass rush concepts. There's one where the running back, where Chuba Hubbard has to make the business decision.
Yeah.
Do I pick up Demario Davis, who might murder my quarterback?
Right.
Or do I pick up Alontae Taylor, who's 180 pounds or whatever he is? And he picked up Demario Davis, and Alontae Taylor came clean. Alontae Taylor's incredibly quick, incredibly fast, and a good tackler. Like, literally, it's one game, but the one thing I'm sure of is that he is a brilliant blitzing DB that can be effective a lot doing that because you blitz your nickel a lot. And he didn't miss, and he came quick, and he came clean. And those schemes from Dennis Allen were – I watched them on Next Gen Stats where it shows you, like, just the little circles moving, and it's freaking brilliant what he came up with. Look, I like the Saints to keep it close. I like it low scoring. I know what I know about the Saints defense, and I saw it in action. I think they're going to make some plays. I still don't know what I know about the Saints offense because it was –
You only know what you know.
And I'm positive the defense can keep it low and keep it close. I would say – and look, I'm pulling an upset here for the Saints, and you talk about flipping this city into
it would change a lot of things.
Ridiculous mode, and it would be so much fun to see that happen. So yes, I would.
What's your final score? Give me a final.
I would say 21-17 Dallas.
21-17 Dallas. Sean H says Saints 28, Cowboys 17. Calvin and he also says Kamara 104 rushing yards, 87 receiving. That is A, mighty specific, and B, highly optimistic.
Yeah.
But I like your thinking, Sean.
Yeah.
Calvin wanted to clarify what he said earlier. He didn't. New Orleans, I guess he means wins 35-10. Saints win 35-10. All right, here's my prediction. Before I knew of the Saints O-line injuries, I predicted the Cowboys to win 26-19. I know, Boo. That means that they win and cover. With the Saints offensive line injuries, I'm going to say this. I know you don't want to hear it. I tell it the way that I think it is. If Awanga doesn't play, it is not good for the New Orleans Saints against this pass rush. And I got to be real and tell you that if Fawanga doesn't play, and you got Landon Young at left tackle, and you got either Lucas Patrick or Nick Saldiveri at left guard, because Lucas Patrick is still dealing with his own injury, and Dexter Lawrence is foaming at the mouth, and Micah Parsons can't wait to get to Trevor Penning. This ain't the Carolina Panthers, folks. I would love to be proven wrong. I'd love to be sitting here Monday, and we have the greatest show, and all you people who predicted the Saints win, roast me, and I'll show every single one of the comments and eat it. I'll eat it. I won't even put salt or sugar on it. But I just, if Fawanga doesn't play, we're talking like 30-10. I mean, I think Carr's going to be on his keister, and people will be back to hating, and I hope I'm wrong. So there you go. That's my prediction. You don't like it, do you?
Who, me?
Yeah, you can.
No. It's no. Yeah, Jim.
I want them to all come. They can all come back and tell me how wrong I was. You know.
Yeah. And look, Fawanga playing and not playing does make a huge difference. There's no question, and the Saints absolutely have to have him.
Interestingly, we had our most watched ever. You know, we're trying the TikTok thing. You can teach an old dog new tricks. Okay. So anyway, the most watched TikTok by far we've ever had was the one we did yesterday. It's got something like before I came on the air. I have no idea what it is now, but before we came on the air, it had like 19,000 views. And that's a lot for me on TikTok because we're trying to grow. We just started trying to grow the TikTok stream, but it was as many Cowboys fans commenting on there as Saints fans. So the Cowboys fans are seeing it too. You got to remember where they're coming from. Now you're all hyped up and hoot-atting it up, and you should be excited, be thrilled, hoot-at it up, baby. Love your team, predict your team to win. But you got to remember, Cowgirls fans on the other side, they're just as hyped up about their team as you are about yours. Who's right? Who's wrong? Maybe we'll find out Sunday. I just think for the Saints, if they could find a way to keep it close, Doug, it maybe changes. The haters won't be around if it's like I don't know, if it's like 27-24, Saints lose, or like 20-17, or the score you predicted. I mean, I think that Saints fans can live with that and accept it as long as they don't blow it in the end or something like that. But just keep it close. Keep this season interesting, because it can get away from you if you get blown out.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. And actually, even the score isn't important. It's what the eyeball test tells you. Don't get blown out on both sides of the ball. Play it tight. And yeah, if Dallas scores a touchdown at the end and wins by 14, if the Saints keep this tight, that says more about this team than last week. There were a lot of things that I liked last week, but look, that first interception, the Saints didn't do anything right on Will Harris's interception. It was just
he just threw it right to him.
It was a horrific pass that you never see in the NFL. Like Dak Prescott, I don't think he's an elite quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a good quarterback. Yeah. He's not going to make that pass. He's just not. And so you're not going to get gimmies like that. But you can get a consistent pass rush. You can play the run. I like a lot of the things the Saints did well. And I like the Saints defense to begin with. You're right. Fawanga doesn't play, and the offense could struggle. But I also want to see, what does Clint Kubiak come up with in that case?
That's the most fascinating thing to me at all, because I will say this, because I went back and watched, and everybody's talking about how great the O-line did, and I thought Fawanga was outstanding. I agree with you. McCoy was great as always. But if you go back and look, Penning had a couple really nice blocks, but he also had a couple moments where he was on his ass.
Yeah, so, and they disguised it well.
Exactly.
If the pass rush isn't working, you're going to see 3rd and 8, and the Saints are going to run the ball. Like, you're going to see them not play it. Let's see. This will be a great game, and especially if Fawanga doesn't play, this will be a great game to judge Clint Kubiak.
Because I think what he's been able to do, and obviously his scheme is designed to kind of hide Penning almost. It's like 1-2 boom. Yeah, and get the run blocking going, and they were great at it. Again, it's a different animal this week. We'll see if he can do it. But that is, to me, the most intriguing thing of this whole game is watching Kubiak against scheme against that line. So anyway, Sean says, won't roast you. They'll be second lining and toasting. Me too, bro.
Yeah, no, they'll be second lining. I already feel
Yeah, I mean, look, people want to be excited about this.
Yeah, of course.
They want to be. So, man, you give them a chance. And I talked to Demario Davis in the locker room afterwards, too, because I went right in the locker room right away when Dennis Allen was actually still talking at the podium.
Yeah.
And I went right in the locker room. And I said, Demario, can we talk to you for a minute? And he said, yeah, if you don't mind, can I not do it this week? And I was like, and I looked at him like questioning, and he goes, like, I just want everybody else to get the glory. Like, I didn't do anything great in this game. I said, well, you are the defensive leader, so it is kind of your role, but I get what you're saying, and I'm cool with that. I said, but look, thank you for putting the city in a good mood. And he looked at me and goes, yeah, we did that. And it's true. Like they know in that locker room what this
They definitely did that.
New Orleans, yes. Unfortunately, the damn hurricane. Look, let me say one thing about hurricanes. Right? Okay, for the last 18 years, I have worked every hurricane that there has been.
Yeah, how'd you get out of that?
Wait. We are in a unique position right now where we're fully staffed for reporters, and the way modern TV, meaning the last 5 years, is we don't have as many photographers as we used to, right? We have a lot of one-man band reporters. They go out and shoot their own story. That's right. What kids do these days. And it's awesome. Except in the case of a hurricane, they can't go by themselves. It's too dangerous. And it's even in the union contract. You have to send two-man teams into hurricanes. But because of our staff now, we have all these reporters and not as many photographers. So even our sports photographer was with a news reporter. So for Ricardo and I, there's no photographers left, which is a beautiful problem. They didn't have anything for me to do. So I was not on the hurricane schedule, which means we're fully staffed, and it's good. I'd rather see a news reporter than the sports guy anyway, so I don't disagree. But let me say this. Here's my one takeaway from a hurricane at home. It is so much more stressful at home, like infinitely more stressful to be at home watching on TV than it is to – my next door neighbor has 16 pine trees. That adds to my stress. And my house was destroyed in a category 1. In Isaac, I had a tree guillotine my house. So all these factors, I was a nervous wreck all night. When I'm working a hurricane, when I am standing.
No wonder why you were drinking that whiskey and rye.
Oh my God. When I'm standing in Ida, in the hurricane, I am standing in hurricane force winds. I'm not nervous a bit because I'm just working. And then I'm thinking, what do we want to use my next live shot? I'm not worried about my house.
It's the same thing when you're covering the Saints too, because when you're covering them, it's a lot different than watching from home, because you really, I don't know how we do it, but we do. It's just innate, or whatever. It becomes innate at some point. You take yourself, the fan part of you, for the most part, like 90% of it anyway. There's still times that you kind of like, what the hell, whatever. But you can separate your work self from your fan self. Yeah. When you're in that press box or at the bottom. Yeah, you have to.
I will say this. I will say this too, though. Like, it's infinitely more fun to cover a winning locker room than a losing locker room.
No doubt.
So whomever I am covering, I am pulling for them to win, because it's going to be a more pleasant, fun day.
No doubt about it. You going to Dallas?
I am going to Dallas. We're driving. We don't fly to Dallas or Atlanta. We drive to Dallas or Atlanta. And so we'll be on the road tomorrow morning. Get to Dallas tomorrow. We actually have this thing where we'll prop up the phone on the dashboard and we'll change different games. We'll be watching games and driving. It's a beautiful thing. That's what I would
be doing. You're not supposed to be telling people you're watching the game and driving.
No, not that game. Oh, no. I'm talking about the passengers watching. The driver is just
driving. Right. Yes. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, right.
There's a reason why I have of course I don't watch anything. I would never do that while I'm driving, but there's a reason why I have a mount set up for my phone and have YouTube TV. Not that
I will see every play of the LSU game, but I will also be on the road to Dallas. It's a beautiful stadium. It's a great stadium. I would say this for Saints fans, like if you're looking for road trips in years to come, it's a great stadium to see. I think it's one of those stadiums. Look, I think SoFi in LA is a stadium that people need to see. It's a beautiful modern stadium. Like the old stadiums are great too. I'm not saying that, but Dallas as a cheap road trip, if the Saints go there in the next few years and you've never been, and you have the means to go to a cheap road trip, you should go, because it's a fun place to see a ball game.
Well, safe travels, my friend, and thank you for popping on.
Yes, and I feel for Mike Detillier. I've been there, and I love Mike Detillier. So I didn't deliver the way he does. Talk about high energy. You had Mike Detillier.
I know.
So
that's why we had to keep it. It's close. The next best thing to
it's next best thing. Like A to C minus. Yes, I'm giving it a try, but yeah. Anyway, so all right, Jim.
Well, thank you, Doug. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, bud.
Doug Mouton, ladies and gentlemen. A fun burst of energy. You don't need any caffeine when Doug Mouton comes on the show. You just don't. He makes me look tame. Makes me look quiet and shy. I'm quiet and shy. No. Yeah. So anyway, look, I don't want my Saints prediction to come true. I know people sometimes people get mad at you when you say what you think. Oh, what kind of fan are you? I'm not a fan when I'm doing this show. Okay. Now, Sunday, when there's no camera on me and I'm sitting in the shades because they're on the road and I don't have to be at the Dome and I got the game on the big screen and I got Sunday ticket on the little iPad. Sure. I'm going to be a fan sitting in my chair. I'll be screaming, that flag's bullshit. I'll be just like you. Okay. But when I come on this show, I'm going to tell you the way that I think it is after I have time to think about it. It's what we do here at Dattitude. So when I tell you my prediction, it's not what I want to see happen. I tell you what my analysis tells me is going to happen. Same as when I do my NFL picks column. I might not want certain things. If I'm predicting the Falcons to win, I don't want the Falcons to win. I'm telling you what I think is going to happen. If I'm wrong, great. Who cares? So people get mad at you. You would be surprised. I know people, they really do. Some people really get mad at you. You should see some of the hate mail I get sometimes. Sometimes I respond, sometimes I don't. But this show's about fun and knowledge all at the same time, right? I mean, that's what we do. We talk to you. You say whatever you want to say. I say what I think. It's all one big ball of fun. And guess what? We're going to do it again on Monday. You know what's coming. Mono-y Monday. Mondays with Gabe. He'll have something to say. I know y'all will all have plenty to say. And you're invited. You're invited to come back and say whatever you want on Monday. Within reason. And I'm not going to let you, I don't know. You know what I mean. I don't do dumbasses real well because I kind of like turn the tape. If there's anything that I need that I've been trying to work on is dumbasses, okay, and how I deal with them. You would think that as old as I am, I would have learned by now, and I'm getting better. I just don't have a lot of toleration for. I mean, just not necessarily stupid in the sense of the word stupid. You know what I mean. That's not even a nice word. I tell my kids not to say, and then I just said it on the podcast. Anyway, you know what I mean. All right. That is going to wrap it up for us on this Friday. You know what I think. You know what Doug Mouton thinks. Gabe came on earlier. The show was a good show. And I want to thank Doug for coming on. Again, short notice. We wish the best for Mike Detillier. We hope all is well. Of course, we want to thank our favorite Gen Zer, Gabe Henderson, our BFF, our buddy, our producer behind the scenes who fact checks me. And he's kind of like a debate moderator behind the scenes. Fact checks everybody. And you know what? If I didn't have him there, I'd just be sounding like a dumbass half the time because he tells me all kind of stuff I'm wrong about. Although he didn't tell me I was wrong about the records on the screen. That's kind of embarrassing, by the way. We know Tulane's not 1-0. We know that Oklahoma's not 1-0. And we know the Tigers are not 2-0. So I need to fact check my own self before I finish these damn slides. Look at that. All right. After the LSU and Tulane games, you can check me out tomorrow night on Varsity Sports Now. The Shaw West Jefferson game was supposed to be tonight, but I'm going on there. They moved it to tomorrow night. They had no school. I know West Jeff was not even able to practice on Wednesday and Thursday, so they moved the game to Saturday night, 7 o'clock. My pal Jim Rapier will be with me. And again, if you don't know this already and you're new to the show, every Monday we call it Mono-y Monday, which means just me, it's Gabe, and it's you. That's all we got on Mondays. And we all just say whatever the hell we want to say, including you. A reminder to subscribe to our Dattitude YouTube page. Click the little bell. Receive notifications when we go on the air live. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, many more. You can also find a replay of the show on NOLA.com/sports. Gabe's got a lot of stuff going on. By the way, I forgot to say this earlier. His prediction on Cowboys Saints is 27-16. He's got prediction and player props coming out early Sunday morning. Make sure you check him out. All of his stuff. He's got multiple things out just about every day on bet.nola.com. Also, my NFL picks column came out on Wednesday. This morning, got my weekly trends piece that I did on Sunday last week. We're moving it to Friday, so people can have the whole weekend to read it. It basically goes through. It tells you what the series record is, if anyone has a trends advantage, what Dak's record is and stats are against the Saints in his past game, what Derek Carr's past record and stats are in the game, notes on the series, who's won, what's the record in Dallas, what's the record in New Orleans, what uniforms they're wearing, who's doing the game, all kinds of stuff. Weather. You can check that out on bet.nola.com as well. All of our Saints insiders, nola.com/Saints. We will see all of you, hopefully, come back on Monday. Have an absolutely fabulous, storm-free weekend. Lots of sunshine. Roll wave. Go Tigers. And, of course, who dat? Take it easy, my friends.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.